Welcome to a new video on my home automation series. I often get questions if Sonoff can do certain animation scenarios. I have covered this in multiple videos, but I thought I'd just collect all the possibilities here in a single video. Hopefully, by watching this, you will know what you can and what you can't do with Sonoff. I have my test setup up and running again, and I just want to show that I also have a Sonoff Basic, which is not actually on the board, but it is actually here and it is connected, and I have all the other devices set up at the moment. And I've already created a few scenarios that we are going to go through, and that's why you see some weird behavior, which I'm going to explain it in a few moments. I'm planning to talk about a couple of different scenarios. The first one I'm going to talk about is the automatic time-based controls of individual devices, which you can set up for every single device on the schedule screen. So that will be the cases where you always want your certain lights to come on at a set time of the day, and you want them to go off at a different time. The next one is going to be the manual time-based controls of individual devices. So these are your timers, again, that you can set up or base for every single device. So that would be things that you want this light to automatically turn off after 10 minutes. There are a special set of controls which are related to temperature and humidity. For that I have the TH10, but there are other similar products like the TH16, and I believe there is an Australian version of the wall plug, the S20, which can also have an external temperature and humidity sensor attached. So those would all support this kind of functionality, and that would work as a basic thermostat. So we'll see how that works. Then we move over to the scene functionality, where you can have different scenarios defined, which can be again manually triggered or can be automatically triggered based on a certain state of a device. And finally, what I have mentioned in my previous video as well, when you want to have cross-platform integration, for example, you want your Sonoff to control your other home automation devices, for example, your Philips Hue lamps, then you have IFTTT to do that. Let's first look at the automatic time-based controls. These are the things that you see on every single page at the bottom of the screen under schedule or in the loop timer. Schedule is basically time-based events where you specify that on a certain day, date and time, or on certain days within a week, you want at a specific time, you want your device to either turn on and turn off. And these are the only two states that you can control. Obviously, if you have a device which has multi-gangs, then you can control each of the gangs individually. And what I have set up here at the moment is that for this particular device, it's going to turn on 1637, 1635 on Monday to Friday every day, and then it's going to automatically turn off at 9:15 p.m. again Monday to Friday every week. You can have up to 8 of these settings, and these settings are actually stored on the device, so they even work if the internet connection to this device is broken. If you don't need any of these functions to work temporarily, you can disable them from the menu and then re-enable them whenever you need them. Also, I want to briefly mention the loop timer. Again, I don't really see a real life scenario, but these are things that you can set up that you have a particular cycle, and that cycle, so for example here I have a 10-minute cycle which starts on the on state, and after 5 minutes within that cycle it should turn off, and then it should start at a particular day and time of the year, and whether you want to enable it or disable. So again, you can set it up, you can disable it and enable it later on. For example, if you have a well and then the well pump only needs to run 10 minutes and then needs to be off for 2 hours, and then 10 minutes and 2 hours. So that can be a scenario for the loop timer. And again, the schedule is just a normal schedule. I mean, I would use this for garden lights, so they should come on when it gets dark and they will automatically turn off at, I don't know, for example 11 o'clock when I don't need them anymore. The next scenario is going to be the manual time-based controls, and those are the functions which are available within the timer section. So that could be used for usual light switches well, in fact, it can be any device. So the scenario I have created here is that I have this Sonoff touch. I'm going to turn this touch on. I'm going to go into the timers, and I have a timer set up which says that after 10 minutes, here it says after 10 minutes it should turn off. So if I start this timer, now this timer is running and my Sonoff 10 is going to turn off after 10 minutes. The only thing with these timers is that you always have to start it manually. So you can't have a scenario where by turning a device on, it should automatically turn itself off. So you always have to come to the timer and turn it off manually. But again, it could be useful for many scenarios where you know that you have to turn something off 10 minutes, half an hour, so you can set it up like this. So for example, if you have a porch light, you turn it on, and then you are leaving home, but you want the light to stay on for another 10 minutes while you go out and maybe you lock the door. So you can come to here, you set up an off timer, a 10-minute off timer, you start it, and then you leave home, and you would know that this light would automatically turn itself off after 10 minutes. Again, these schedules cannot be incorporated with a timer, so you can't have timers which only work in a certain period of the day. Next set of automation function is related to temperature and humidity readings, and I'm going to demonstrate it in a TH10. Again, as I said, there are other models which support the same. Basically anything which has this external temperature and humidity sensor should be able to follow that. And when you come to this device on the main screen, you see that besides the main button, let me switch back to manual mode. So beside the main button where you can control the state of the device, of course you have the temperature and the humidity readings, but you also have this slider switch which says auto or manual. And when you switch it over to auto, you are presented with this screen where you can set an upper and a lower threshold of temperature or the humidity. So again, you can only use either temperature or humidity. And also one of my viewers asked if you can enter decimal places, but you can't. So it has to be equal digits of even temperature or humidity readings, which I think is still enough, because I don't think these sensors have a good enough precision to measure, well, definitely not humidity, but even temperature in 0.1 degrees precision. So what I've created here now is I want my TH10 to turn on when the temperature is higher than 25 degrees, and then turn off when it drops below 23 degrees. And if I activate it, then it turns to automatic mode, so I'm no longer able to manually control the device. And let me heat it up a little bit so I can get the TH10 to turn on automatically. And now it actually happened. As you can see, we have to wait because the update of the temperature and the humidity only happens every 10 seconds or so. So now we have gone above 25 degrees, it's 27 at the moment. So the TH10 has come on. And if we wait long enough until it cools back to about 22, then it will turn itself automatically off. By the way, in my previous video, I've enabled this functionality which you can get in settings, which is the operation notification. So it's like an on-off setting. And I got a notification here which says the device status change TH10 on. So that's the operation notification. So you get this additional notification in the app, which is again is quite useful, especially if you have your device, for example, this one set to automated mode, and you have it remotely, so you can't physically monitor its status, but you would always get a notification when it flicks on and off. One more thing about the TH10 that probably everyone thinks about: if it is possible to somehow combine the auto functionality with the schedule. So can I, for example, have the switch to turn on and off at 25 and 23 degrees, let's say daytime, and overnight it should be 22 and 18. And no, this is you can't do something like that. So you can use it as a basic thermostat, but you can't really use this functionality as like any other programmable thermostat where you can set different temperature levels dependent on the time of the day. So unfortunately can't do that. And with this, I would like to go over to the different scenes. On the main screen, you see the top, selector switch on the top, which says all devices, which you can see now. So I can see all my devices and you can see the scenes. In the scene mode, you would typically set up automation scenarios which involves multiple Sonoff devices, one controlling another or one controlling multiple Sonoff devices. And again, there are two different varieties. One is where the ones that you trigger manually, and the other one which trigger automatically. So here in this list, the couple of examples I've created here, you can see that the top one and the bottom one are created manually because I have the run button. The three in the middle, they work automatically. So I don't have a run button, and in the icon you can see like an auto IFTTT. So this is not actually IFTTT as in the IFTTT service. So the icon is a little bit misleading, especially now that there is a real IFTTT integration. So the first one I'm going to talk about is this coming home and leaving home scenarios. So these are the ones where you have a manual trigger, and then the result of the trigger is setting status on multiple devices. So the way you would set it up is you come to, you create a new scene, you specify the name, so it's a test scene, and then you click on the plus sign when it says when it meets, and then you click on plus, and now you can choose the two different modes, which is the click to execute, so that's a manual, and the trigger device. So now we are going to use click to execute, and then in the execute line again you can click on plus, and then you can specify the device and the status that you want to set when this scene executed. And as you can see, you can have as many devices as you want. Also, you might notice that my TH10 is not showing in the list. I don't really know the answer to that, but they have not included the TH10 in the scene mode. But pretty much all my devices are listed here. So I see my POW, my basic, and my touch. So in this scene, what I would do is when I execute it, all three of these devices would come on. Of course, I can choose one of them to be off, so this is completely customizable. And I'm going to save it, I'm just going to leave the ones that I've created here. So the leaving home scenarios, I turn the touch and the basic off, and in the coming home scenario, I turn the basic and the touch on. So again, with one single button, you can, for example, turn off all your lights in your house, or turn the ones that you need when you are arriving home. So if I click on leaving home and then run, then as you can see, let me just go here, my basic and the touch have turned off. And if I click on coming home and then run, I just wait a little bit, and then I can see that my basic and my touch is now turned on. And of course, this does not limit what you can do on the user interface, so I can always decide to turn my basic and the touch off manually. So that's all about the manual scene selection, and that's, again, just to summarize, it's controlling groups of devices and then setting them status by one single click. The next one is going to be the automated controls. So what we have done previously is when we clicked on the when it meets, so we clicked on selected click to execute. So these are the manual functions. The next one is the trigger device. So again, you can select the device which triggers this action. And as you can see here, I can see all my devices now. I can have select my POW and the basic and the TH10 and the touch. And you probably also notice that on most of the devices except the TH series devices, you can only trigger on the status, so whether the device turns on and off. And for the TH10, you can select temperature and the humidity. So let's look at the others, the on-off status first. The execute part of it is again the same. So when a device comes either on and off, other devices can be set to, again, either on and off. And the best scenario for that is using the touch to actually control other devices. So what I have here, I have created two scenes. The first one is touch to basic on. So the criteria here is that when the touch is on, so when the touch is on, then the basic also comes on. And the other one is when the touch is off, the basic also goes off. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm using the switch, the Sonoff touch, to control another device. And of course it doesn't need to be one single device, but again it can be multiple. So in a scenario you have a wall switch, but then you have multiple lights all around the room, and that with that single wall switch you can control all of these devices at once. And if let me go back to my old devices and actually switch or turn the touch on. And now you can see that in the app, you can see that the basic has come on automatically as well. If I turn it off, the basic goes off. And of course it works the same way here in the app. So if I turn the touch on and off in the app, the basic follows the status of the touch. Well, you can even convert it to be inverse if that's what you need. And of course, just like before, the basic can be controlled individually as well. So all the settings of the basics like timers will still apply, but whenever the touch changes, that would overwrite whatever settings you have on, well, the basic in this particular example. And you probably see many of these group function features in other systems where you have one actuator, well, a wall switch in this example, which controls multiple devices. So that's what you can do in the scene mode. Just like before, these scenes and all the other options like the timers and the schedules cannot be combined. They work completely independently from each other. So you have to think it in a way that none of these features fix the state of a device, but they just send an impulse to a device to say, you need to turn on now, you need to turn off now. If there is another feature which comes on after that, it's going to override the setting. I have a timer, let's say in this one, the Sonoff basic, to turn off automatically at, I don't know, for example, 1140. If I turn on the touch, the basic will come on as well. And if the timer for the basic triggers that it needs to turn off, it will turn off. So then the basic and the touch is going to be out of sync. And that's absolutely fine, because what the scene is controlling here is that whenever something happens with the touch, the basic needs to follow. The last scene function I want to talk about is again an automatic one, but what we have seen previously, that on the TH series, you can set up a scene based on the temperature and the humidity. So here I have created like a very simple AC control scene or scenario where I'm using the TH10 as a temperature and the humidity sensor, and I'm saying that if the temperature goes above 30 degrees and the humidity goes above 50%, then it should turn the touch on. So if the touch is connected to an AC unit, that would remotely turn on the AC unit. And of course you can use the TH10 for that as well. But if for any reason the device that you are controlling is not connected to the TH10, but it's connected to another device because it's in a completely different place or it's not wired that way, then again you would use the scene mode so that the TH10 can control another Sonoff device. To test it, let me turn off my devices. Actually, let me put this back to manual mode and turn this one off as well. And so this scene is now running. I just need to heat up the TH10 over 30 degrees. And there you go. The scene actually triggered. The temperature has reached 30 degrees. So the TH10 came on. Oh, sorry, actually the touch came on. So you can see it's actually the touch now. I haven't noticed previously that this scene has triggered the touch, but that hasn't triggered the other scene, which turned the basic as well. I guess that's just how the rule works, or the logic works. But what I also wanted to point out that I have only created one single scene which says that if the temperature goes above this threshold. I haven't created another scene which says that if it drops below another threshold, it should turn the touch off. So the touch would now be on forever unless I turn it off manually. So again, if you want to use this kind of temperature control or thermometer function, you would need another scene where you've defined a lower threshold of, let's say, temperature and humidity. and then turn that device off. By the way, you don't have to specify temperature and humidity as well. It can be only temperature or it can be only humidity too. Again, just like the automated temperature functionality, you can't combine this scene with a time. You might think that you can use this scene functionality to create a programmable thermostat, so you have a scene for daytime temperature and nighttime temperature. But again, you don't have any functionality here which has a time variant of the scenes, and of course it cannot be combined with a schedule functionality. I saved the biggest chunk for last, which is IFTTT. IFTTT actually stands for if this then that, which you can think about it as like a gluing service of other Internet of Things services. So if something happens in one of the service, it triggers something else in another service. And as you can see, if I just click on search and if I start scrolling down, actually if I just click on all services here, you can see all the different services that use IFTTT, and this list is absolutely huge. So you have the usual home automation services, but you also have your Google accounts, your various business tools, different accounts, your news services, your weather services. Everything is here, and you can create all of them. You can create a service where a trigger happens in any of them and something happens in the Sonoff in response. So you can think about any like crew notification services where you have your favorite Slack channel, and if you get a new post, then a light in your room comes on automatically. And again, it can be anything. You can just scroll through this, anything you like, anything that you use on a daily basis, you can have that to control one of your Sonoff lights automatically. I think there are some news services here as well. So again, if there is an interesting news, your light in your study will come on, so you know that there is something that you need to read. And of course, there is eWeLink in here. So if you look for eWeLink, then you find the eWeLink Smart Home, which is our Sonoff Cloud service. And when you come here for the first time, you will need to enter your Sonoff user ID and password to connect your Sonoff or eWeLink account to IFTTT. And when you come to this page, there are a set of like sample activities or sample applets that you can use and customize it for yourself. The IFTTT really complements things that are not available in the eWeLink application. I mean, all the external triggers, but there are some like nifty features that you might want to have. You don't have it in the Sonoff application, so you just you need to come to IFTTT and see if you can do it in IFTTT. So let's go through some of the basic ones. Turn on and off your eWeLink 4-channel switch when you get close to home, and you can click on any of these services and you can customize it for yourself. So if I want to turn it on, then first of all, it asks for my address. So if I enter this location, then, well, actually this is set up with a 4-channel switch and I don't have any 4 channels, so that's why it's saying option unavailable. But if I go back and if I select something else, let's say turn on and off 1-channel switch as you leave home. So again, I want to use this service, I turn it on, and again I specify the location, and then now I have plenty of 1-channel switches. So for example, I can say that I want to turn my touch on whenever I enter this address, and of course you can change it to your home address. You can click save, and now this service or this applet is now enabled on your account. So whenever you enter this location, your light would come automatically on. And actually I've configured it myself, so you can see a video playing in the background now where I'm walking towards home. I have my phone in my hand, and when I get about it was probably about 1,500 meters from my house, the light actually came on, and again, it's working. It's that easy. So the next example is track your eWeLink 1-channel switch usage on Google Spreadsheet. Oh, that looks fun. So if I turn it on, let's say I want to, okay, you can set whether you want to receive a notification on your applet. So there is an IFTTT applet that you can install on your phone, and that obviously is required for the location-based services, because these would be based on the location of your phone. So for example, if I want to track whenever my Sonoff Touch turns on, and what would be the spreadsheet name, and what would be the folder in my Google Drive folder. And so I'm not going to save this because I've already done this in the past. So if I go to my Google Drive, I can see that I have an IFTTT folder. Within that, I have an eWeLink. I mean, I just kept the default settings, but of course you can change this one. And then if I open up this spreadsheet, I can see that I have, well, in the time frame when this applet was running, or when this applet was enabled, I turned on my touch 5 times. These were the actual timestamps, so the touch and the status was on. So because I've already created one applet which triggers whenever the touch is turned on, I can only see the on ones. But if you create another one which also tracks the off status, then you will always get another line here whenever it turns off. So again, if you are curious about how much you are using a particular appliance which is connected to a Sonoff, you can easily track that, and then you can, well, not measure consumption, but you can have an idea about the usage of that device. If you click on My Applets and you click on New Applets, you can create your own. So I have a few examples in my mind just to pick a couple of services, randomly, and then give you an idea what you can do here. So if you have your phone, of course, you can always open up the eWeLink application and turn your devices. But let's say you don't have that application, or you can't access it for some reason, you can also set up your email accounts to turn your devices on. So I can create an applet where I say that if my trigger is, let's say, Gmail, and in a Gmail you have a couple of options. You can create a trigger whenever you receive a new email, which is probably not the one, but you also have this label functionality in Gmail. If you go over to Gmail and you go to your labels, you can create labels. So for example, I created a Sonoff label, and within the filters and the block settings, you can create a new filter for Sonoff, which I thought I created it, but maybe I didn't. So create a new filter. You can specify the filter to be from a specific from address. So maybe you can set it on your address, so it's only emails from you are triggering this Sonoff integration. But let's say the subject is contains Sonoff on, and create this filter. And then you can do something with with this message. What I want to do is I want to assign it to a label. So whenever I receive an email which has in the subject it has the word Sonoff on, Gmail will apply a label Sonoff to it. So if I create this filter, now the filter was created. Okay, that's fine. Now I can go to IFTTT and I can create a trigger when a new email in the inbox is labeled. So the label is Sonoff. Create a trigger, and then of course the end part of it is going to be in eWeLink, and then I have say the one channel switch turns on or off. That can be, let's say that would be the basic, and it turns on. So by creating a simple email trigger, so whenever you send an email with a specific subject which turns the label on that email on Gmail, that would trigger this action in IFTTT, and that would turn one of your Sonoff device on. You can even have this one on, so you also get a notification, but sometimes it's annoying, so I usually turn it off. So if a new email in the inbox labels Sonoff, then turn on basic, well, Sonoff basic. So simple as that. So now you can turn your devices on based on an email. Next one. Let's look at another Google service. Well, let me just do calendar. I'm going to use Google Calendar, but you have iOS Calendar and other calendars available here. And let's say I want to do something when a new event starts. So the good thing about Google Calendar is that you can have you can create multiple calendars. And for some reason, this is not triggering. Sorry, this is not loading. But what you can do here is you can create a new Google Calendar which says, I don't know, Sonoff control. And within that, whenever you create a new event, when that event starts, let's say 0 minutes when it starts, you can create a trigger, and then the output of that trigger, just what we have seen with the email, is that it's going to turn on a particular device. By creating that, you will have a trigger which turns your light on, and then you can have a new event here, so you can create another applet which says if the event ends, then again the trigger is that your light would turn off. So this applet would control one single Sonoff device. So if you want to create multiple Sonoff devices, you would just have to create multiple applets, one for the start of the event and another one for the end of the event. But these are very simple to set up, so you're just going to have a lot of applets in your IFTTT account. There's no problem with that. So let's create a new one. We have seen the Gmail and the calendar functionality now. Probably another thing that you can think about is, I must be able to do some cool automation with weather. And luckily we have the Weather Underground service here in IFTTT. So if I click on that being a trigger, now you can see that, there you can do so many different things here. So for example, in the current temperature drops below maybe 5 degrees Celsius, then let's create a trigger. The other side of it is eWeLink, and then again control my switches. But let me go back and see what else Weather Underground can do. So obviously you can do temperature, current condition changes. So for example, if the weather forecast now changes to snow, cloud or rain, that could be really useful. Back when I was talking about what you can do with schedules, I said that you can only specify certain specific times, like for example 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock. You can't have something like a sunset on the sunrise. Well, now you have IFTTT and you have Weather Underground, and it gives you sunset and sunrise. So you can create a trigger when you have sunset, then you turn on your garden lights. Again, eWeLink, one channel remote, POW, and then you turn it on. So, okay, if the sun goes down, you turn on this POW, which, let's say, that controls your garden light. I'm always talking about lights, but again, your Sonoff device might not be controlling the lights. So here, for example, if the current temperature rises above, let's say 35, or even 30 degrees Celsius, then you want to trigger one of your Sonoff devices, which, let's say, is controlling your blinds. So with this type of integration, you can control your blinds to automatically lower when the temperature rises, so it saves your house from heating up in the summer. And up until now, I was talking about scenarios where something happens in a cloud service which controls a device in eWeLink. But of course, it can be the other way around. And I think that probably the best example of that is using your eWeLink touch sensors or your wall switches to control a device in another cloud service. So now my if trigger is eWeLink. So I say one channel switch turned on. My one channel switch is on, touch, and state is on. I create a trigger. And then that part of it can be anything else. So for example, I can have my Sonoff touch to control my Philips Hue light. Unfortunately, I don't have a Philips Hue light, so when I click on Philips Hue, it asks me to connect. And because I don't have an account, I can't really complete this setup. But even though I can't show you the entire integration, I hope you get the idea. So now you have something happening in the Sonoff system. You touch one of your wall switches, and that would trigger something else to happen in another service. For example, your Philips Hue light or your internet connected. There are a lot of appliances here that you can, for example, remotely switch on and off with a Sonoff one. Similar to the scenes, now I was about to create a trigger or an applet which executes when the touch is turned on. You also have to create one which triggers when the touch is turned off. And the last trick I wanted to mention is somebody asked me if I can create an IFTTT action based on a temperature of the TH10. My first answer was no, because as you can see, the trigger can be a device turning on and off. So there is nothing here which says temperature. But if you remember, you can set up the TH10 in automatic mode. So it will turn on and off based on temperature or the humidity settings. So you can set up the scene or the automated mode to operate the TH10 itself, turn its relay on and off, and then you can have an IFTTT trigger which then says if my TH10 is on, I should trigger something. So indirectly you are using the temperature and the humidity settings in the TH10 to control another cloud service. With that, you are actually losing the TH10 relay, because that would be used to turn on and off and then trigger IFTTT, but still you can create this integration. Just like I've mentioned for the other features, they can't really be combined with each other. So what you can see in IFTTT, there is one service making an impact on another service. So you can't combine the input of two services to trigger something. I think that will be the end of my eWeLink automation A to Z video. I hope you found it useful and your automation questions got answered. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.